Hey guys, I'm back. This is Joel Castro, and today I'm going to talk about, the usual stuff related to video games. Today I'm going to talk about something that happens with a lot of video game series. I'm talking about series loyalty. Oh man, how that can get scary. Game loyalty. Everyone always has this series that they relate to, that they have known since the beginning of its inception, and have grown and loved it for the longest time. A lot of people, it's usually a very long running series, like say the Legend of Zelda series, which is my personal series. You have I think, what was it? Shit. People have Half-Life, even though that's not exactly a series, but people are really loyal to that one. You have people that are loyal to a lot of JRPGs, like Final Fantasy, for instance. That game gets a lot of loyalty, that series. And I understand why. There's something that that those people relate to. There's something that people enjoy about it so much that they just want to see it over and over and over. And that can cause a few problems, in my opinion. I mean, let me get one thing very clear. When you're loyal, you're very attached to a series, and you want to see the series grow and develop and hopefully get better and better with age as it goes along. This happens rarely. There are very rare instances where games either stay amazing or just get better and better as they go along. The Legend of Zelda, I think, is one of the few examples where an entire game series has been even remotely loved with the entire fan base. Every Zelda fan I know loves all of the games. With one game being like their all-time favorite. And this also happens with the Sonic series, even though not every entry has been that perfect or great, despite what the fanboys believe. Sonic 06 is a disaster. Sonic Heroes was okay. Shadow the Hedgehog, good God, is that game awful! But I digress. That's for a different video. But that's the thing. People are just so loyal to this one series of video games that it kind of gets scary sometimes. And that's not to say that's not to say that, they don't have a right to be loving to a series. It's just that, you have to be objective at times. You have to know where to draw the line when a game becomes either different to the norm of the series or simply just bad. Fanboys, they're fans, they're fans, they're gonna love a series either way. But I think they just don't forget to realize that there are bad games in a series. One of the few examples, I think, where fans are evenly divided is the Final Fantasy series, and I have to agree with that. I'm a fan of the Final Fantasy series. I haven't played every single game like a lot of people have, but I've played enough of them to know that, I love it. I love this style of JRPG. I like a lot of the characters. I love the universe that each game builds. I have zero idea if they're interrelated or not. There are a couple theories, but I'm not going to get into those because I honestly don't know that much about them. But nevertheless, this goes into what I'm really going to be talking about in this video, my top 5 Final Fantasy games. Now keep in mind, again, I haven't played every single Final Fantasy. However, I have played enough to where I can say, yes, this is my top 5. And, it's just one of those things, It's one of those series that I just fell in love with ever since I played Final Fantasy XII. And, without further ado, here's my top 5. I'm just going to look some things up because I don't quite remember some of the games that like I used to. I don't remember some of the games like I used to, so bear in mind with that. However, when I looked them up, I definitely will remember what I loved about it. So, without further ado, here we go. Number 5, and this entry is gonna surprise a few of you. It's not for some of you. Final Fantasy 13. How many of you fanboys are screaming at me right now? Like, no, no, no! It's the worst game of the series. Don't love it. Don't love it. Hate it like we do. Good God, I want to punch you right now. You know, it's one thing to hate a game just for deviating so much, and then there's just pure rage because it doesn't fulfill what you want in a Final Fantasy series. With that said, I realize it is not the perfect game in the series. I realize that it is far from the best. The plot has issues. Some of the characters have issues. The linearity of it all, the hallways. I don't give a shit. Guys, I've played a lot of the other Final Fantasies before playing Final Fantasy 13. I didn't mind the hallways. I didn't mind some of the annoying characters, apart from Hope. I don't like him. But I like the story. I like the characters. I like the world that this place builds, despite the fact that you don't get to see a lot of it until like the 11th chapter. And even then, you still have these amazing backgrounds and these very colorful areas and this very character-driven plot. I like character-driven plots, guys. And you complain about its linearity. Final Fantasy X is just as linear, and you guys still love it. Alright. Rant over. I like Final Fantasy 13. I give it probably a 7.5 out of 10. Now that I look back on it. That doesn't mean it's a terrible game. That doesn't mean I think it's a terrible game. I just like it. Guilty pleasure, guys. I am allowed to have those. Number 4. Number 4 on my list has to be Final Fantasy IV. It is one of those games that you like it. People love it. It's one of the most popular Final Fantasy games. It has a very character-driven plot. Like I said, I love those kinds of plots. And the characters are just so lovable. You have Cecil, the Dark Knight. He's just so cool and so very memorable and likable. You have Golbez, one of the best villains in the series. He's a sorcerer who... Actually, I think he's being influenced by Zemus from the game. Because Zemus, when he dies, he summons forth the very essence of hate. If you don't remember much of the game, I'm trying to spoil it as little as possible, but I think he influences Golbez's actions, which makes me think he's the real villain. But then again, you have other villains like Rubicant. He's just so awesome. He's the true Autarch of Flame. For those of you who have heard of the Autarch of Flame on YouTube, that's where he gets his name from. And it's just a great plot and some great characters, great villains. Amazing gameplay, great music. Uematsu is just a god of video game music. The plot does get a little confusing since it's very character-driven. So in order to understand the plot, you have to understand its characters. The story is very linear. The story is a little linear. Again, why are you complaining about linearity in Final Fantasy games? 4 had it, 10 had it, 13 has it. God, you guys are so... blind at times. Again, I'm raging, but I like Final Fantasy IV. 8 out of 10 from me because, again, the plot can get a little confusing. It's a damn long game for a Final Fantasy game. But I love it. I really absolutely love it. All right. Next, number 3. All right, this one's going to get reactions from a lot of you because I talk about it a lot. I complain about it a lot. Final Fantasy VII. Oh, dear God. People are going to judge me. Like, oh, you how can you say this? You've bashed Final Fantasy VII so much. You hate the characters. You hate. Arg. I don't hate this game. I actually like it a lot. It's mostly because of the story. It's one of the few plot-driven stories with a lot of character development, apart from a few people. But I love the story in Final Fantasy VII. It's very diverse. It's very well written, apart from the few translation errors that happened. But I love this game. I absolutely love it for its story. Now, again, I've complained about Cloud. I've complained about Sephiroth. And I know some of you have raged at me. Rawr, 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 rawr. Bitch, bitch, bitch. Moan, moan, moan. Sephiroth, it has his badass moments. Like that scene where he's standing in that field, that thing of flames. That was badass for its time. And this is one of those games that's in serious need of a remake. But I can understand how influential it was in the RPG genre, as well as popularizing Final Fantasy in North America. But, again, I don't like Cloud that much. He's a whiny emo git. I don't like... Oh, shit. I don't like Sephiroth that much because, well, his personality is about as interesting as the personality of a banana, you know? But I like this game for its story. I like the other characters. Barrett is a badass. Tifa is just awesome. Yuffie is amazing. Vincent Valentine, everyone knows about him. La la la. 8.5 from me, just because of Cloud and Sephiroth. I know, it's a nitpick, but... Number 2! This is a game I've played very recently in the Final Fantasy timeline, and I can see why it is some of the best. It is considered one of the best. Final Fantasy IX. And this game is just... It has some of the cliches from the other games and a lot of references to the past games, but it does them so right. You have Vivi, who is a Black Knight. You don't see those anymore, but he looks like a Black Knight too. You have Zidane, who is just a great representation of all Final Fantasy cliches. You know, he's the protagonist. He's a kid. He's a womanizer. He gets the girl at the end. Oh my god. But it's done so right. He's the most effective womanizer in any Final Fantasy game I've heard of. And the story, it just develops so well. It's one of those games where I find the fewest plot holes in any Final Fantasy game. Kuja. Kuja is one of the most threatening villains I've ever seen in a Final Fantasy game. He's one of my favorites, and he is just scary. And oh man, if you play the game, you'll find out how scary Kuja can be. But man, the thing I don't like about this game, though, as great as it is, it's something from Final Fantasy VIII, which is a Final Fantasy that I really don't like. The card games. Triple Triad is back with some other name that I really don't care about. Why must they have this card game in a Final Fantasy game? 8 and 9 always have this game. It's the most tedious thing ever. But other than that, 9.5 from me. It's just amazing. Go pick it up. It's on the PlayStation Network for like, what, $10? Play it. If you're a Final Fantasy fan, you owe it to yourself to play Final Fantasy IX. Because it has everything that makes a Final Fantasy game amazing. With that said, why is it not my number 1? My number 1, I have talked about this. Final Fantasy VI. It has my favorite plot, my favorite characters, my favorite villain from the series. It has all my favorite elements that make a Final Fantasy game great. And it has just the most likable characters. Other Final Fantasy games, you know, they have that one annoying person. This one, I like everyone. I love everyone, even the villains. Kefka is the most amazing villain a Final Fantasy game has produced. He's my favorite. But I know people see him as a Joker ripoff. He's a Joker ripoff done right. It's a Joker if he had magic. Imagine how scary that would be. But, you know, the character Terra is awesome. Locke is amazing. Celes, she's just so memorable and, tragic. I like tragic characters, and I love this game. The story is amazing. How it develops is awesome. The side quests aren't too tedious. There's different ways the story can branch at times. But some stuff still develops and stuff. People develop very well. I love Final Fantasy X. It's not perfect. I get that. So, objectively, I have to give it a 9.5. But my fanboy says 10 out of 10. The fanboy in me says 10 out of 10. But again, I love these games. These are my favorite. These are the ones I've played. Sorry, my voice was starting to go a little bit. But these are my favorite Final Fantasy games. I've yet to play all of them. I will play them eventually. But these are the games I like. And that's all the time I have for you guys today. This has been Joel Castro. And Final Fantasy 13 is better than Final Fantasy 10. Signing off. Goodbye.